After falling steadily for decades, the past 2 years have seen a rise in violent crime. It's unclear what's driving this increase, but racial biases and distrust on all sides seem to be making the problem worse. Too often, interactions between citizens and police are ending in violence. Many believe people of color are treated unfairly and sometimes even targeted by those in the criminal justice system. Others say police as a whole are being blamed for the actions of a few, and that the dangers, stress, and violence law enforcement officers face in their work is underestimated. Still others believe our society's propensity for violence helps escalate confrontations between citizens, as well as between citizens and police. How do we ensure our American commitment to equal protection, fairness, and justice? We'll begin deliberating with 3 options, each rooted in different concerns, each with its own benefits, drawbacks, and trade-offs. The first option suggests that police and communities need to work together more closely to reduce violence and crime. The second option addresses injustices and bias in the criminal justice system. And a third option looks at using de-escalation strategies to avert potentially violent interactions. The particular actions and trade-offs we'll be talking through are only a few out of many, but they give us a starting point for our deliberation. Option 1. Enforce the law together. This option says we should find ways for communities and police to work together to stop violence and crime. By increasing the number of officers and instituting community policing and neighborhood watch programs, citizens and police could identify sources of violent crime and work together to stop it. But there are trade-offs. An increased presence of law enforcement may create the atmosphere of a police state, and encouraging community members to get involved in fighting crime could lead to vigilante justice and more racial bias. Can we accept those drawbacks? Option 2. Apply the law fairly. This option says we must remove injustices, reform inequities, and improve accountability in the criminal justice system. This might include limiting the use of traffic stops and stop and frisk searches or reducing arrests and incarceration for minor offenses. We could also require that law enforcement and court officials receive training to recognize and reduce implicit bias, and establish independent prosecutors to hold police departments accountable. But training officers about implicit bias and the possibility of prosecution could make officers hesitate in split-second decisions, increasing the danger they face. And by eliminating procedures available to law enforcement and reducing arrests, we may make it harder to get criminals off the street. Are those trade-offs we can accept? Option 3. De-escalate and prevent violence. Option 3 says that situations often unnecessarily escalate into violent confrontations, and we must take direct actions to disrupt conflict. Discontinuing the standard use of military-style equipment by law enforcement, instituting stricter regulations on use of force, and improving de-escalation training for police officers could help diffuse potentially lethal situations. In incidents involving mental health issues, including drug abuse, police are usually the first to respond. Putting more resources into mental health programs, including dedicated mental health response teams, could de-escalate situations before they become violent. But all these proposals may increase the risk of harm to both police and the general public. Can we live with that? Americans are concerned that issues involving violence, law enforcement, and racism are undermining our national ideals of safe communities and justice for all. These 3 options represent only a few possible choices, but they give us a starting point to begin deliberating together. So let's start talking.